Welcome to the Somewhat Frank podcast, hosted by me, Frank Gruber, and joined by my friends and colleagues, Jen Consalvo and John Guidos. This podcast explores the latest trends and advancements in technology and business, including emerging startups and how they shape today while looking forward towards the future. We also enjoy testing new gadgets and products and sharing our findings too, along with our favorite pop culture picks like music, books, and what we're streaming. This podcast is produced in collaboration with our company, Established. Ready to dive in? Time to be somewhat frank. Welcome back to the Somewhat Frank podcast. I'm Frank Gruber. We're on episode 61, the coveted Roger Maris episode. We're going to be hitting bombs today. All right, we're going to quickly go around the horn. Johnny Goodtimes, welcome. What are you up to?
Hey, everybody. Glad to be back. Nothing, just enjoying summer, have some kids' sports stuff coming up, and then got back from a long anniversary weekend up in Door County, so northern Wisconsin, which was lovely.
That sounds fun. Simon Kahan, what are you up to?
Well, I had plans this summer to get really strong and jacked and go to the gym a lot. I've decided today actually that I'm going to postpone that till next summer, pending greater motivation.
Nice. Okay, that sounds good. Jen, what have you been up to? Jen Consalvo.
Let's see, we had a national celebration I took part in by going to see some fireworks on the 4th of July. Other than that, I've been enjoying backyard chickens, some morning walks on the beach, and some hot yoga. Nice. All right. Nothing like hot yoga on a 85-degree day. It's
real supposed to really get you sweating. Maybe Simon, maybe you should take that up. That sounds like something.
To next summer. I'm booked this summer, unfortunately.
Boy, your plans are busy. Okay. Schedules are tight. All right. I've also gotten a quick update. Obviously took place in the last couple of weeks. I've been a little rough. I think I mentioned on the last podcast. I am a lot lighter. I lost my appendix recently. I had to get it taken out. Thankfully, it went smoothly. I'm on 14 or 15 days past having that done, and I'm feeling good. So that's good. And as Jen mentioned, we are still raising chickens. The chick count is up to 9, or I guess it's down 9. Still the same, holding steady. And we'll go to the live chick cam right now. Take a look at them. They're looking pretty good. They're getting big. They're 2 months old now, and no eggs yet. A few more months of growth, I think, or a month or so of growth here, and maybe they'll drop an egg here or there. And but they are getting big, as you can see. All right, Johnny, when do they start laying eggs? Soon, right? Like a month or so?
I think like 8 weeks, maybe.
8 weeks? No, it's got to be more than that.
I read 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, so I think we got a few more months of
exactly 8 weeks. I don't know. It's a good question. It's been a while. It's been a while ago.
Yeah, I know, right? Probably was 8 weeks after you got your chicks, potentially. Depends when you got them. But anyway, you can see they're growing and eating and doing all the things they do. All right, so diving in, lots to get to today. Have you all seen this circulating the internet, this smiling robot face using human live skin? Did anybody see this? It was like a meme and it was like floating around.
I did. I actually brought it up on the last podcast, and I feel like you all did not believe me about this one.
Right. That's why we brought it back. It's a thing things that nightmares are fueled by, I think, and we didn't really talk about it in detail. And I thought, we should definitely hash this out a little bit more. It's it's basically this experiment being worked on between University of Tokyo and Harvard, and they're investigating how do you have living tissue, basically anchored on a robot's limbs or face, which can look really creepy. Not gonna kid you. Jen,
well, it's interesting that think about it, right? The convergence of technology and biology are coming together. I mean, you're going to have human skin now grown over robots. You talk about the Terminator movies. You can talk about why is the term eluding me right now? But when AI and biology are we all simulations, right? It's a much bigger conversation.
It's a big conversation for sure. And this skin will actually, it's cultured skin, and it could heal itself, which is pretty crazy. And have a bunch of different sensors to be able to touch and feel and whatnot. So we're getting
basically close. Robot skin will heal. They'll have self-healing technology before humans can heal ourselves. So
right.
There could be.
Gosh, that's an X-Men plot, actually. Unfortunately.
Is it really?
Yeah, one of the X-Men movies, they get that ability, and I think the world may actually end in that movie too.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Wolverine, my favorite comic book character, has
Yeah.
regenerative, but what I was talking about earlier was singularity, a term a
Yeah.
phrase coined by Ray
Yeah.
Kurzweil back in like the 80s or 90s, right? But we're at that point, the convergence of human intelligence and technology and those sorts of things. So
yeah, that's very true.
The picture is just amazing because of its gloppiness. It's just so like gloppy looking. And admittedly, they said, this is just a step, right, in the process. Before you know it, we won't be able to tell the difference between the skin they make for robots and our own skin, except theirs will be flawless, and we'll still be spending thousands of dollars on lotions so that we can have skin that looks as good as the robot skin.
They should make robot skin with eczema to make us all feel a little bit more.
I was just gonna say, women right now, there's this trend for young women to get like really, really dewy skin, like that looks so almost wet looking to the touch, is like so perfectly moisturized, it's like wet looking. And I look at that picture and I just start cracking up because I'm like, that's the next step. We're gonna go from like dewy finish to like gloppy, like just so we never have to have a wrinkle.
Well, it does also that does sound interesting, but also kind of weird. It reminds me of the have you guys seen that movie Unfrosted that's on Netflix? There's like a character in there that it's like this escape experiment of like cereal that like runs away. The picture looks like that.
It does look it does look like it.
Oh,
It really
like
does.
Pop-Tarts, right?
Yeah, the Pop-Tart movie.
Yeah.
Jen, we need to coin a phrase here, because there is something, right, when they say that the best way to convince people that it's not AI generated is to actually put like typos in it or stuff like that. And yeah, flaws. And now, with AI and deep fakes and stuff like that being so perfect, you're going to start adding flaws to make it look even more realistic. So if you're trying to convince people that it's not AI or it's not some sort of like fabricated something, there needs to be a term for that thing. So I guess flaws on its most basic sense would be a good word for it. But
yeah, think about it. If we're gonna start, at a certain point, if the idea is we're gonna purchase home robots, I don't want that thing looking better than me. Like, so I have to wake up every day and feel worse. Like, I want the one that looks tired.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That's pretty funny. All right. Speaking of growing things, our friends over at one of our portfolio companies, Established Ventures portfolio companies, Atlantic Sea Farms, which is based here in Maine, they had a really nice spread in the Wall Street Journal, like a really nice article in the Wall Street Journal, great photo article with their CEO, Bree Warner. And I wanted to highlight it here because it's pretty interesting. We've obviously are big fans of Atlantic Sea Farms. They're getting some good press, and the article is called "A Seaweed Crop Finds a Spot in Maine Waters." And it talks about kind of the benefits of Atlantic Sea Farms and things they're doing. They're literally pioneering a sustainable regenerative farming of seaweed in the U.S. and are the largest producer of kelp in the country. So pretty exciting stuff for a small startup here based out of Maine that's doing big things. Obviously, there's health benefits for seaweed. Obviously, could help with the economy as far as like the actual industry itself. Could help with food shortages, things like that. And obviously, the benefits of being regenerative and sustainable and helping, from that perspective, all kind of play into the whole climate situation that we're dealing with. So wanted to shout out there. Did you all get a chance to see that or no?
I did, yeah. And I find it surprising that it's not much bigger than what it is, right? Because the byproducts alone can be fillers for food, and it's all regenerative. And we're looking for those new, there's these algae farms nowadays that are doing similar things. So kelp's just one, it's going to at some point be a huge cash crop, I would imagine. So them being a first mover in that space is pretty huge.
Yeah.
I think if you look at globally, the majority of it's coming from Asia right now. So like when you go to Costco or a grocery store and you get all those little seaweed those kelp snacks that they have, those are all coming from overseas.
These little prop for you.
There you go.
Yeah.
So they have such a huge opportunity to disrupt that market. Because like you said, John, they're the first one here. And if just on that basis alone, like there's got to be some advantage there.
Yeah,
so we're a big fan.
Product of Korea, it says. It says organic seaweed, but it doesn't say from where or how it's farm. It says non-GMO seaweed, organic. I don't know. Organic
Is there
seaweed.
a limit as to like how warm or cold? Like, can it be grown in kind of all of the oceanic
No, it's got to be cold
bio?
water, I believe, and it's got to be the right. So they've thought about doing like looking at other places where they could grow. They can grow it in Maine and in Alaska in the United States. They might be able to do a little further south of Maine too, but what they really need is the kind of rocky coastline to be able to protect it when you're actually growing it. Because if you have it in like open ocean, it just gets swept away. Or there's a way that they do it that you kind of need those nooks and crannies of the coastline to be able to protect it.
That
So,
makes sense.
yeah, so interesting stuff. All right, so moving along here, this one just caught my attention. I don't know if you thought the same, but Waymo, which has been testing out their robo taxis for a while, are now open for business in all of San Francisco. So for a while, it was like you were on a wait list and you were waiting for the ability to take a robo taxi, and now anybody can download the app and take a ride. So we're at that point now where robo taxis are a thing, at least in San Francisco, and soon to be, I believe Phoenix also has a launch coming up here too. So, yeah. So I don't know. Have you ever anybody taken a robo taxi before, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I took one in LA. It's really crazy. And I think the hardest part for me was like trying to just allow myself to trust it as like a feature.
Yeah.
And it was great. It like made sure not to tailgate, like it stopped probably before you need to stop for lights. I loved it personally.
Anyone else?
I
You know,
haven't, no, but oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I have not, but I'm really coming around to it because the more I listen to things and I want to see stats compared to like so driverless cars and accidents compared to like teenagers and elderly. Like if we start to look at like some of those curves, I feel like we're gonna and really think about it, we'll start to feel more safe in a self-driven car. So I'm trying to warm myself to it, and when it's available, I'm anxious to try it.
Yeah. John, did you want to add something?
I was gonna say I've never tried it before, but I do have an issue flying. It's that control aspect of things, right? Like I feel even though I don't know how to fly a plane, well, I do a little bit, but um, if I was flying the plane, if something came up, I would at least have my own, fate in my own hands, and having a computer take those things into account for me. I don't know. I mean, I like the idea of it. I would just I think I'd be pretty uneasy about it. So.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people are gonna be the same boat with that. But it's interesting, like the stats are really interesting. In San Francisco alone, tens of thousands of trips are taken weekly. Over half of those customers are using it for medical appointments, and about 36% are using it to connect from one transit like BART or whatever to another. And so it's like a connector. It's kind of interesting that that's what it's being used for. I can see the medical thing. I mean, if you ever had to take like um, an ambulance or anything like that. Thankfully, I didn't when I had the appendix situation. I drove myself, but like I could see, after coming out of a medical appointment, if I couldn't get a pickup, somebody's got to pick me up, right? So I guess it doesn't matter if it's a robot or Uber, I guess. So or Lyft. So similar kind of stuff.
Paratransit in the US is a huge market, right? So just that alone, it makes sense, right? Because some of these people are elderly and they need they don't have a caregiver necessarily, but they need to get to their doctor's appointments and stuff. So I think there'd be a huge, not only opportunity, but need there for it as well.
Right. And sometimes they don't want to have a driver just from a safety perspective or whatever. So it makes sense. But it's funny to say from a safety perspective, but then also not have a driver. So I don't know. Those were like two words.
So John, let me ask, are you more nervous about being in one or being on the road surrounded by driverless cars?
I would say both, but I lean more on being in one. And I've given this a lot of thought, right? The statistics for flying in an airplane obviously are pretty good as well, right? You have a much lower chance of getting in a plane flight accident than driving a car, for example. But I still get in that plane and I still don't know those pilots. How
Right.
Are they fighting with their spouse? Did they have a late night drinking the night before? I know obviously being a robot, you take some of those things out of account, but I'm just trying to like put myself in the place of actually sitting there with no one driving me, just a car and a robot. I would definitely be uneasy about it. I'm sure I'm not alone in that, but I'll get over it. I'd like to try it out for sure.
Yeah, and someday there could be robots that maybe did have a fight with their spouse. We're not quite
Yeah.
sure yet.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not quite sure how that's going to all play out. But moving along here, we're going to talk about something really uplifting. GPS threats. Oh, what a transition.
It's a good segue.
Good segue. Good segue. Yeah. So research is showing there's a report out that 60,000 commercial flights have experienced bogus GPS signals in the last year, posing significant risk to navigation. So your flying situation, John,
Right.
not great.
Exactly.
And it's a target. I mean, it's a target. We know, we talked about it before on the podcast down in South by Southwest when we were talking about space and some of the things that are threats to space. You've got all the satellites out there doing GPS that could be potentially vulnerable to missile attacks, explosions, whatever. And one of our own portfolio companies, Scout, is actually doing kind of vision and analytics in space for similar reasons, but also for all the different things that could collide with a satellite. So really interesting stuff, and obviously an area where we're vulnerable, and we don't necessarily have a great backup system in the US here. So I know others are working on a backup system for GPS because it is a potential, if we can't get our directions, how are we going to get there? If all of our robo taxis are using GPS, what's going to happen? And there's more too. Obviously, ATMs rely on it, and other things rely on GPS to make sure that you can get your money out and things like that. So.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Do you recall I believe it was around last year, there was this major alert that Russia had launched like a satellite space. Do you guys remember that? It was kind of big news at the time. And it's just this reminds me of just like kind of that's the next frontier in terms of especially national defense. Because I mean, if you were to take out like people like me, I can't even get home without my phone. Like it stinks. I don't know what routes since like I don't know. Interstates are weird. So yeah, I mean, I think I'd be pretty done for if our GPS ever got shut off for sure.
I think you're not alone. I think there's gonna be a lot of things.
Well, my
broken
dad
down.
tells me to go like 12 steps to the north and then take a left. I'm like, come on, like that doesn't that doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. No, definitely. Yeah, so interesting stuff. Obviously something to keep an eye on, and we'll keep a close look and keep it in our next podcast as we see other kind of things kind of posing threats to GPS. All right. So next up, we've got a little bit of a fun one here. So Utah governor is declaring phone-free Fridays. So the governor, Spencer Cox, declared June 14th to August 25th Utah's phone-free Friday summer, which is hard to say. It's kind of a mouthful, encouraging residents to disconnect from their devices at least on 1 day a week. So that'd be on Fridays. I'm assuming because he mentioned the word Friday in it. I guess it could be any day, but he's saying Fridays, and it's aimed to really focus on real-time connections, real-life connections by reducing your screen time, which if you look at your little screen time app is probably, I don't know, mine's at like 8 or so hours or 6 to 8 hours a day, which is ridiculous. I mean, to think about kind of. And it's, obviously they're focusing on increasing face-to-face interactions among those that live in Utah. Utahns, is that right? Utahns? How do you say that? Is that right?
I like Utahns, like
Utahns?
croutons.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Utahns.
I like that.
Croutons.
Rhymes with Utahns. We're gonna get all the love from folks in Utah now, and on this podcast, I'm sure our inbox will be full. All right, so yeah, so interesting stuff. I like the effort. I think it's interesting. We've done summer Fridays for folks that work at established, but we don't say disconnect, obviously.
I like the idea. I love the initiative. I struggle with it personally, like you were mentioning, Frank, 6 hours a day plus being on your phone.
Yeah.
I delete Instagram probably once every 2 weeks for like a week or so.
That's why you didn't get my message.
I don't, well, I haven't, but so my trick is, and this is maybe a pointer for all of our listeners, I now have the desktop version so that I'm at least not on my phone. I have to be at a computer to look at Instagram, and their functionality on browser is terrible. So not only is it not on my phone where I can easily look at it and it hurts my eyes and I'm connected all the time, I have to be at a computer, and not only that, its user interface is terrible, so it's not even as good, so I don't use it as much. It's really helped. So I'd say I cut my at least my social media viewing time at least in half.
Wow.
No, more than that. I'd say I'm down to like 10%.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, that's a good approach. So others that are having struggles with it, delete Instagram, I guess, and then put it on your desktop, right?
Does it help you? So, John, do you feel like it improves your general happiness level?
100%. I unequivocally, it makes me more happy. I get stuff done more. I'll go for a walk, spend more time with my wife. I'll play cards. I'll read. Like it impacts my life. I feel pretty strongly about this, actually. I know I sound like a nerd or whatever, like an old person, to some of those kids out there, Simon. But like, it does make me feel better. So it helps me out anyways.
All right. Well, that's a good lesson. Maybe others could adopt it. All right. We're going to switch gears here. We're going to talk about something we always love to talk about, which is extraterrestrials. So, but in a really interesting way, Harvard scientists claim that aliens could be walking among us, and it's kind of freaking people out. It was written up several different times a week or so ago around the 4th of July holiday anyway. And it's literally a recent study that, Harvard University suggests that there's possible existence of cryptoterrestrials, which are extraterrestrials being potentially extraterrestrial beings living among us, either underground or on the moon. This is a real study. I'm not making this stuff up. And the study speculates that UFOs could be visiting these Earth-dwelling aliens pretty regularly. So it was authored by a group of folks, Tim Lomas, Brendan Case, Michael Paul Masters, and the study is titled the Cryptoterrestrials Hypothesis. And it's more or less goes in depth on this. So what are your all thoughts?
I can't imagine how they can possibly study this. Like, I don't know what study finds lunar bases and what metric they used it. I mean, I hope it's true. I also have an issue when people say like Harvard in front of anything, because they could just be like in a completely different field at Harvard, and then that's their title. And it
Like
has
Harvard,
been
Illinois? Like, are you saying a different place, like locate? No,
it
it's
could be
Harvard
Harvard, New
University.
Hampshire. It's unclear. I don't know.
It's Harvard University.
It's university, Harvard University. But the interesting thing is it's not been peer reviewed yet, and it's obviously raised questions of credibility. But it's gained a lot of attention on social media. So to your point, you're right. Like, is it something that they did out of humor, or is this real? And obviously, but this has been something that's become more and more to the forefront, with folks, at NASA whistleblowers potentially, talking about, concealed lunar bases, and and that's actually referenced in the study as well as other things that have kind of been bubbling up recently with the Pentagon releasing some things. I mean, there's definitely been a movement towards talking about I guess it's UAPs, which are something that we've been talking a lot about as well.
All right, do you guys want to get real weird? Because I can get weird on this topic.
Oh, let's get weird, John.
So anyway, so I read the article, and it's just a statistical like they're just saying it's a statistical option, right? So,
yeah.
But there are certain things, if you look back in the history of mankind, and even documented in sacred texts, whether it be biblical or Sanskrit or whatever you want to talk about it, right? But there are certain things like the Anunnaki, which they claim that they actually came here and merged with, animals, right, to make the human race. Those sorts, and those Anunnaki, that DNA is still around. Or what's even weirder, and I shouldn't say weird, right? I don't want to offend anybody, but like there is this race of aliens called it's like the Elysians. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it the right way, right? But like these people live amongst us. They look nomadic, or they look like they're from Norway or from Sweden or whatever. They're tall, light skinned, etc. And they claim to be like an alien race, an alien species that live amongst us. They have podcasts, they have YouTube. Like, it's one of those things that
I got to get one of them on the cast.
Hey, I'd love it, but then we probably do that. But yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, are these things hiding in plain sight? Like we just like overlook it because it's so far-fetched. We think it's so far-fetched, but these people are out there and they're telling us that they're basically warning us, like, we don't take care of our world and we fight and we're going to kill ourselves and this and that. And I mean, so they really are. Have any of you ever heard of these things before, or am I on my own on this one?
I have a family member who is 100% in. and has watched like every movie, listens to everything, looks at the websites. So I definitely hear about this all the time. So John, you're not alone. I think there are probably millions of people. I think people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to, feel like they're, that they're in the fringe. But I think way more people in the mainstream spend a lot of time listening, watching, reading about this and believing than we think.
Yeah. By the way, I mixed up my terminology. They're actually called the Pleiadians. How do you say it? They're Pleiadians, by the way, because I said Elijahs. I think that's actually like a fictional thing, but the Pleiadians from the Pleiadian galaxy or whatever. So, anyways, but the point is they're tall, fair skinned, etc. But they do warn us about things, and they are living amongst us. And these people have been trying to tell us for a long time to be better to our Earth and ourselves and stuff like that, which is always a great theme, anyways, right? So you can't really argue with that. But
Earthlings, get your act together.
Yeah, exactly.
They should help us. Why they're just standing around complaining at us? They should show us like some cool alien tech, right?
Maybe they have.
True.
Who knows? Yeah.
AI is pretty crazy. Could have
I mean, how else do we figure out composting?
I don't know. I still don't understand composting.
We had to buy a machine to do it. Maybe they're running Vitamix. Anyway, moving along here to our watching, listening, reading section. It's been that summer movies, lots of summer movies out. A couple that have been hitting really hot are, and I saw one recently with my little one, Inside Out 2. It's a Pixar film. It is the biggest film that Pixar has ever made. It hit the $1.25 billion mark at the box office, and it's gotten some really great reviews. It's the sequel to Inside Out. Just Inside Out. There's no one. It's just Inside Out. And so Inside Out 2, it picks up with the character Riley with her emotional development as she goes through adolescence and has some really good themes. It actually is made for kids, but good for everyone, I think. So especially, with everything going on with mental health these days. So definitely a good film to check out and has some really great, I guess, messages. So check that out if you haven't. And what else? What else are people watching?
So from our previous company, Techo Media, we had a writer, Connor Colley. He still actually writes for Techo Media, I believe. Yeah. And he's a comedian. And Frank saw that he had produced a comedy special, so we were really excited to watch it. So we can drop the link in the show notes. And it was really funny. So go, Connor. You're awesome. I would put a note out there. So anyone out there who happens to be bald, there's a lot about baldness that you may really either love or hate. I'm not sure, but it was really funny. So awesome. If you love comedy, give it a watch.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. Connor did a great job. I didn't know he was that funny. He's a funny guy. He wasn't funny when we worked with him, was he?
I guess he was.
Come on. He wasn't like funny about like.
Well, he wasn't cracking jokes all the time. He
Right.
does bits, and he saves them for the stage.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. He's got a different personality on the stage, but great job getting it out there and producing this, and obviously we're big fans. We'll be cheering you on from the sidelines here. All right. So what else? I had the appendix taken out. I had a lot of downtime last couple weeks, and I binge watched the entire The Bear series on Hulu. So if you haven't seen it, it's a really good story. It's got 3 seasons. Where the third one just was released, and I've watched all of them now. And it takes place in Chicago, which I love, and it's a great story of struggle and realness, and its rawness, and the music's really good as far as they actually do a really good job of playing music that's related to Chicago, I feel like, with some of the songs and things they pull in. And obviously love Chicago. It's great to see the city in that show. So I liked all of it. Obviously highly recommend it. You might like it too. It reminds me a lot of it's about a startup business too. It's about a restaurant though, and it talks through some of the struggles with that. There's obviously some ties to mental health issues that people are having when they're running the business. And anyway, it's a lot of there's some drama in there obviously, but also some really good parts too. And we'll see what happens. I watched the season 3, and it leaves you on a cliffhanger, so I don't really know what else to say. I don't know what's going to happen. But I have to say, season 3 was not as good as season 1 and 2. Honestly, though, I know people are enjoying it, but it was a little bit slower. And but it did have record-breaking viewership on Hulu, and I was one of those people, I guess. So check it out. We'll drop a link in the show notes about The Bear. Anybody else watching anything? Reading anything? Reading anything? Listening to anything? No.
Hi, I know that Frank, one of your favorites, Eminem, just dropped his new album today.
Oh,
I saw
really?
that.
Yeah, have you got a chance to listen yet?
I have not. I'll have to check that out.
You have to listen. You have to listen from very first. It's kind of interesting, and I've listened to a couple songs, but you have to listen to it from the very first song through the end. It's like you have to listen to it in order, and it's interesting because he does deal with a lot of relevant topics, and it's like a few of the songs he basically raps against his old self, who probably wasn't as I don't know, secure with certain things. And, obviously this was back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, some of those themes. So it's an interesting listen. I mean, we have to disclaim it. It's not for everyone to listen to. It's definitely got some vulgar themes and those sorts of things. So
when was his last album before this? Was it like, it was a while, it's been a while, right? Like a couple years, at least 4 or 5 years, right?
Yeah, and this one I think is the name of it's like Death to Shady or something like that. So he's like toying with the idea that this is his the death of Slim Shady, that this is like his retirement album or something like that. But
nice.
You'll find it interesting.
I'll check it out. I mean, I feel like some of these folks are putting out, like Beyonce had her album out, the country album, and it's like you got to listen to the whole thing to understand it, kind of thing. And you've seen a lot more of that kind of like artistic kind of
concept album stuff.
Yeah,
right?
concept
That's
album.
right.
Sure.
That's right.
Yep.
Good.
I had the I downloaded the Great American Bar Scene by Zach Bryan. I thought that was really good. I don't know if you're familiar with that one yet, but it's got a lot of songs on it that are pretty good. So I think he had like I think he had like 10 songs in the top 15 or something like that from it. So that's kind of interesting. And he's coming out, he's touring right now. So that was another one that's new. But so listen to that. But yeah, so great stuff. All right, so one other thing that I received this week and I've been reading is the From Garage to Greatness, Succinct First Steps for Early Stage Entrepreneurs by Eric Matthews. He's an entrepreneur, investor, coach, and author of a pocket guide. It's just a tiny little guide. You can see it's not big. You can put it in your pocket, carry it with you, put it in your back pocket, whatever. And it's only, around 60 something pages, 65, I guess, with that all in, 7 or 8 chapters. And it talks through, how to create a startup, from discovery, delivery, dollars, tips, tricks, to-dos, do's and don'ts. And then kind of takes that and breaks it down into really simple, short paragraphs about the things you would need to think about to start a company. So check it out if you get a chance. You can go to ericmatthews.com, just like it's spelled on the front of the book. Eric with a C, Matthews with 1 T, and there's an S at the end, and .com, and ericmatthews.com. You can check it out and get this guide as well, and turn your idea into reality, which is something I like to say all the time. So I really love this book, and taking something which could be in a thick book and breaking it down into something real short is helpful for people. I think they'll get their head around it, get going, get started, and start their living their dreams. So check it out if you get a chance. Thanks, Eric, for sending it, and thanks for writing it too. All right, moving along. Final thought. We're gonna wrap up here. I know that there's at least one Rubik Cube fan among us, and somebody that could actually do the Rubik Cube. I don't know if anyone else besides this one person on this podcast can do it. So curious, you can raise your hand if you are. But the Rubik Cube is turning 50 or has turned 50 years old. And gosh, it feels like just yesterday when that little thing came out. And I'm not 50, so I was like a little, I guess, thought in someone's eye at some point when it did come out. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. You guys ever play with Rubik's Cube?
You can learn it at any time. That's all I'm gonna say.
Jen got really into the Rubik Cube and can like solve it in like 2 seconds. I think we should have had you on.
Well, I got pretty quick at it, but I've lost it. Like, it's all algorithms. So you have to, like, you learn the algorithms, and then like you have to commit it to memory, and then you can do it. But and then you can iterate on that. But once you've not done it for a while, I don't think I could pick it up and do it without my cheats. I got my
Ooh,
cheat
that's a
sheet.
challenge. You know what? We're gonna have you on next podcast doing the Rubik's Cube. What do you think?
I've only gotten frustrated with them. My brother is like you, Jen, though. He used to be able to do them in like under a minute. And I used to, same exact, it's funny you said algorithm because I used to ask him how he did. And he's like, well, it's just a series of overlapping algorithms. And I was like, good Lord. I don't even know what that means, right?
Yeah. Simon, you're a Rubik's Cube fan? You ever play with it?
You know, I gave it a shot. I watched a video like literally holding my hand through like turn it here. I still couldn't do it. I made it so I got all the white pieces on and then I got frustrated and I tried to, you can pull it apart a little bit. No,
Yes. I remember as a kid, I used to literally take the stickers off and like sticker it to the point where like all the stickers would just start falling off.
Yeah,
I love never really, that was when I was like a little kid though. So obviously now it's a little bit easier to figure
Like just a couple years ago, but
yeah, like 10 years ago.
It was a tough, last week was tough.
Yeah, but anyway, for anyone who want to try it out, there's you still time to learn how to do the Rubik's Cube, and you can check it out and have hours of enjoyment wherever you're going with your Rubik's Cube. It looks pretty cool too if you're out in like a beautiful park or something there and you're just like Rubik's cubing, right? Is that Jenny? You like to do that, right?
no.
Bring it to like a bar scene and you're just in there in your mind, like just doing the Rubik Cube.
For me, it was more of like a car thing, like, like if I'm the passenger in the car, like doing it there, or just, like having it in my bag, and if I'm in a waiting room or something. That
Can it look cool though? I mean, can the Rubik's Cube look cool? Like if you're
if you're one of those people who can do it like with one hand in like under a minute, maybe, but no.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to, maybe I won't bring it to the next party. Negative or something. Anyway, that's just something to think about as our final note. Check it out if you haven't already. There are YouTube ways to kind of learn how to do it. And Jen, obviously, we're gonna have you on the podcast, and you're gonna be doing it next time. I want you to bring it back.
I'll try. I'll work on that.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here, y'all. Thanks for listening, everybody. And this is Somewhat Frank, episode 61. Hopefully, we knocked it out of the park. See you next time. Thanks for listening to the Somewhat Frank podcast. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe and leave us a review. We love the feedback and are grateful to have you as a listener. Have a great day.